Good evening, welcome to ITER Academy. Myself Arun, and let's begin with today's question of handling Deloitte frequently asked questions. Let me share my screen. I hope the screen is visible. So today's first question: given an array of n positive integers, you've given an array which contains n number of positive integers, and we need to write a program to print. We've given 2 points, two tasks to print. First one, it will be the count, and second one, he's asking us to print the sum. So first one, count C, which is the number of elements of array that can be expressed as power of 2, such as 2 power 0, 2 power 1, and 2 square, so on. And secondly, he's asking us to print the sum, which is sum of all elements of array that can be expressed as power of 2. In the first case, we'll print only count, right? So in the second case, we'll be printing those sum. So we need to print two values over here. So conditions are standard input and output and no arbitrary strings as discussed. Let's move to the other part. The given n value is positive and which is less than 2 power 30. Let us look at the input format. In the first line, take input n, the size of an array, and in the next line, we'll be having elements which are nothing but the values of the array. So clear? And when it comes to the output, first we'll be printing the count and next we'll be printing the sum. So given an example, if 5 is passed, we'll be taking 5 elements into the array and we'll be checking. Let me explain you the question a little deeper. Let's get first we need to take n value, which is nothing but the int your input. How many values or how many numbers in array. And next he is asking us to take all the values of the array in a single line. So simply multiple numbers or elements in single line. How do we take it? We have map function. Let us discuss this question once. Let's say we have same elements 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. First, he's asking us to print the numbers which can be represented as two power values. So first 2 power 0 is anyhow 1. So 1, 2, 3 cannot be represented. This will be your 2 power 1, this will be your 2 power 0. This can be represented in 2 power values, and this will be 2 square and 5. So we need to first print the count. Count here it will be 1, next count increments to 2 and 3. So finally your output, your first line should print the count which is equals to 3. And next, what do we have? We need to print the sum of these numbers. What are they? 1, 2, and 4. These are the numbers which can be represented as two power values. So we need to add these values, which will be 1 plus 2 plus 4. 6 plus this whole thing is 7. So this is what we need to print. First line giving you the count, second line giving you the sum of those values. So there are two ways. One, using while loop, or you can define a function which can say if a given number is two power value or not, or else there is a simpler way using bitwise AND operation. Bitwise AND operator. So let's get to know the topics which you need to know in order to understand the code. Obviously, loops. I'll be using the for each loop. Next, we have bitwise operators knowledge and conditional statements. Conditional statements like if else, simple. So this will make your things done. First two lines are done, and what is the logic? We need to first get each and every element. So I'll be using the for each loop in order to get each and every element. Once I extracted each and every number in the list, what I'll be doing, I'll be checking if that number is 2 power value or not. How do I check it? As I've told you, I'll give you an example. Consider 2 power values, let's say 2 power 0, followed by 2 power 1 and 2 square. If you perform bitwise AND operation, if you consider, let's say, F4, this is num, and in order to check if a given number is 2 power value or not, you can perform bitwise AND operation. And the logic here is, if you perform num bitwise AND operation with n minus 1, if the resultant is 0, in that case we call that num to be 2 power value. Quite simple. Let me explain you with an example. Let's take value 4 and num minus 1. Well, this will be num minus 1. 4 minus 1, which is nothing but 3. So represent these numbers in binary format first. Hope you know how to convert the given number into binary numbers. So binary of 4 will be this one. This will be 2 power 0, 2 power 1 and 2 square. So I hope you recollected how to write. Not needed this one. Next 3. What is the logic for bitwise AND? If both the inputs are 1 or both the inputs are true, in that case the resultant will be true or 1. Either of the cases, if it is false, like 0 or 1, 1, 0, the resultant output will be 0. So 0 and 0 will be 0, 0 and 1, 0 and 1, 0, 0, 1, again 0, 1, 0 will result in 0. So if I perform bitwise AND operation with 2 power value with its previous number, which is num minus 1, I'll be getting 0. Let us cross check with other number as well. Let's say take it 2, it will be 1, 0, and one number previous to it is 1, num minus 1, and this will be 1, 0. Anyhow, it will be resulting in 0, 0. So let's cross check with a number other than this, which is not 2 power value. Let us assume 3, and 1 less than 3 is 2. So this will be 0 and this will be 1. 1 and 1, bitwise AND operation will result in 1. So you're not getting 0. So you can confirm that if a given number is 2 power value, in that case you will be getting the result 0 on doing bitwise AND operation with a number 1 less than it. Clear? So I'll be applying the same logic using conditional statements. So extraction of every number, then checking if that number is divisible. So if that number is 2 power value or not. Once these two checks are done, we'll be incrementing the count in each case. As we can see in the here, in the first case, this condition satisfied, I've incremented the count. So which means I'll be taking a count variable to initially 0. And next, I need to add these values, right? So in order to add, I'll be taking sm, another variable, which is equals to 0 at initial place. So I'll be taking these two variables, and this is how we'll be proceeding. Let's begin with the code. So in the first line, what did we do? We took input, no arbitrary strings. So once you have collected input from the user, your next task was to collect array elements list of which is in the form of list, and we use map function in order to get multiple inputs in a single line, and every element is integer format input dot split. So this is how we'll be taking multiple inputs in a single line and converting it into list. Once it is done, As I told, I will be taking a for each loop for num n a r. I'll be checking if each number, if num performing bitwise AND operation with num minus 1, if the resultant, if it is equals to 0, then what did we do? We've incremented the count. So in order to increment the count, first I'll be initializing count variable to 0 and also some variable in order to sum up these values. Let's add these now. Once the condition is satisfied, I'll increment the count value to 1 and sum will be, here we'll be adding the numbers which is satisfied. Here if you clearly observe, I'm incrementing the count, so I'm incrementing by 1 and when it comes to sum, I'm adding the value directly. So once this is done, condition is satisfied. After accessing each and every element, finally I'll be printing. First I'll be printing count, then again I'll be printing sum. As he asked us to print in separate lines, we'll be doing it separate. He asked us to print in separate lines, right? So we'll do one thing. We'll print it in this way. Count and sum. So first, let's take 5 and give the same array. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 3 elements as you can see in the example. Count is 3, count value is 3, and sum of those numbers is 7. So done. So this is how we'll be checking, and not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can give your own other values as well in order to check. If you want, we can just run once more and give 3 values and check. I'll give all values to 4 and 8. Given all 3 values are represented in the form of 2 power values, so all 3 comes into count and their sum 8 plus 4, 12, 12 plus 2, 14. So this is how we'll be handling this problem. So we'll move on to the next question. So next question states that you are given two integers m and n, and he's asking us to write a program to print s, which is sum of factors of absolute difference. If you observe clearly, we need to find the factors of absolute difference. First, we need to find the absolute difference of these two numbers, and then we have to find the factors of that resultant number. So same as usual, regular conditions, input output, standard input output, and do not write any arbitrary strings while reading. And both the values m and m are greater than 0 constraints. Input format, the input contains two integers m and n separated by single white space. So you will be entering m and n, and your output contains integer s, which is sum of factors of absolute difference between two products. So let me explain you this with an example, which makes it much clearer for you. He stated that first he'll be taking two numbers m and n. So in the example, he took 6, 8. So in order to find the absolute difference, we have ABS function which actually converts even if the number is negative, it will be resulting in 4. Even though if you pass positive also, it will result in 4. So we'll be using absolute function over here in order to get the positive values. Next, let us take m and m values. M equals to 6 and n equals to 8. So first we need to find the absolute difference, which will be resulting in m star n minus m plus n. Apply the absolute function. So how do we do it? 6 into 8 minus 6 plus 8. What do we get finally? 6 is 48 minus 7 14. Fraction 34. So this is what we need to print. This is just the difference, absolute difference value we got. So factors of this number we need to find out. So our next task is to find factors of the given number, and once you found the factors of a given number, then we need to add those factors. Add factors of the given number. So that is how it will work. Let's move to the example for more detail. So if you observe clearly, multiplication 48, then he got addition of two numbers 14, then subtraction which was resulting in 34. Now he found out factors of these numbers. Factors of 34 are 1, 2 and 17, and he added up all these values. These are the proper factors excluding 34, and these are all the factors, and final resultant will be 54. So how do we find factors for the given number if it is divisible? In order to find factors, I'll be using a for loop to generate values from 1 till 34, 1 till 34. Then I'll be checking if that number is actually divisible by 34 or not. 1 divides 34, yes. 2 divides 34, yes. 3, no. So on I'll be checking, and next you will be getting 17 and 34. So these are the values which satisfy factors condition. These will be the factors, which means these will be dividing the number 34. So I'll be adding these numbers in the final. So let's take a variable sm initially as usual 0, as we've taken in the previous problem. So what do we need to do first? Take two inputs from the user. Once two inputs are taken, find the absolute difference. After you get the absolute difference, which is 34, find factors of the absolute difference number, and finally sum up those values or sum the factors. Sum of factors. Clear? So this is what we'll be doing in next few minutes in the code. Let's begin. So in the first place, he asks us to take inputs of m and n. I'll be taking it in the same line. So for that, I'll be using map function as they are integer data type and positive int input dot split. Till here it's done. Once you've taken inputs, your actual task begins, and you need to find the absolute difference of these numbers. Let's say I'll assume it to be 80, which represents the absolute difference of that number. ABS of m multiplied with n minus m plus n. So this will give me the absolute difference of a given number. So this is my absolute difference number finally, which I'll be resulting. So I'll be generating values for I in range. I need not check for 0, so I'll start the loop from 1. Then I'll end the loop at 80. So I need to take as it is exclusive, stop value is exclusive. I need to take till number plus 1. So once this is done, I'll be checking if given number 80, does any of the value I except this 0. I'll check if it is a factor. Then if the factors condition is satisfied, I'll make that sum at that I value. So as we haven't declared the sum initially, now we'll do it. So this will add up the values. So once addition of values is done, finally we'll be printing SM value. So let's just cross check the question. Did we miss anything? Nothing. Consider two inputs from the user in the same line, then sample output. Finally, we'll be printing factors sum of the absolute difference. Calculated the absolute difference, founded sum, and printing the sum. So let's pass on the same inputs and cross check with it. 6 and 8. So 6 and 8 result in 54 and 54. Let's check if we have any other example. 11 and 12, if you see, we've got 110. 11 and 12. Let's run this code for same 110. So this is how it works. So let's trace this question as we haven't traced previous one. This will give you a clarity if you have any doubts here and there. So what are the inputs that I've taken? First I've took 6 and 8, two values. Then I found out the absolute difference, which gave me 68. 6 into 8 minus 6 plus 8, which is in, this will be 54, minus that will result in 34. My value which I got absolute difference was 34. Once that is done, initialize some variable to 0. Now my for loop will start with 1. Actually, we can also optimize this loop. If you observe this loop is running from 1 to absolute difference, let's say that number. So this order time complexity is order of n. The number of times your loop runs, those many times your time complexity will be. So the optimal way is you can reduce the number of iterations or number of times your loop runs. We'll do that as well. First, we'll explain you with an example. For I equals to 1, it will check, and once it enters the loop, if absolute difference modular division as we've discussed in the previous class, 1 obviously divides, so the remainder is 0. This condition is satisfied for 1. As the condition is true, what will happen? Sum. Initially sum in a given expression, right side, which is you might have observed in your school days or college days, you might be calling left hand side, right hand side, right? So your RHS part, which is from here till here, this part of the expression will be evaluated first, and the value which is obtained from here will be assigned to the left hand side variable. Clear? So first we'll be evaluating this SM. Initially it was 0 plus I value, we started with 1. So 0 plus 1 will be 1. So SM will be updated to 1. So once SM is updated to 1, next it will check for your loop will run, right? So now the loop value will be 2, and it will check if it is divisible by 2. Yes, it does. So once divisibility is checked, now what? We need to do the same. SM, in my previous SM value is 1 plus I value is now 2. So 1 plus 2 will result in 3. So I'll use this and directly write 3. So the updated SM value is now 3. So on this loop continues till 34. Next the condition will be satisfied at 17. Next your condition will be satisfied at 17, your conditions, and finally it will satisfy at 34. So if you add up these values, you will result finally in 54. 34, 54, and 60. So let's move on. This is how your loop runs, iterations, and this is called tracing. So I've told you that we'll be optimizing this loop, right? Currently, your loop runs for n number of times. Let's say if I pass 34, my loop runs 34 times. And next, if I pass, let's say I've passed 11, 12, or any of the number, you're passing the number, and once you found the absolute difference, let's say we passed 6 and 8, which resulted in an absolute difference 34. So your loop will run for 34 times. So depending on your input, your loop will run. So there is a way where we can reduce the number of iterations happening in this loop. How? Let's go with an example first in order to understand it. We can actually reduce it to half of the iterations, then we can also reduce it down to square root times as well. So first we'll be observing how we'll reduce it to. Let us take a number. Let's say if you take 6, what are the factors of 6? 1, 2, 3, and 6. These are all the factors. Now, anyhow, for any given number, 1 will obviously divide the given number, and itself will obviously divide the number. 1 and itself will definitely divide, will be there in my count. So, what are all the numbers which I have to worry about? Which are the numbers apart from these two are dividing my given numbers? In the given, in order to find the factors, all factors, two numbers are perfectly fixed, 1 and itself. As of now, in this case, it will be 6. If you take 8, it will be 1 and 8. So, 1 and itself, you need not calculate, you need not run your loop for 1 and 6. So, directly you can start your loop from 2 and include this 1 in your sum variable. Initially, you started with 0, right? Now, make it 1 so that it includes your first value, which is your first factor, 1. This will be directly included in your SM variable. Initially it was 0, now we made it to 1. So in this way, we can reduce one iteration. One iteration got down. Next, if you observe the other values, 6 is of course there, we can add it at the last. So what are the values which we need to worry about? 2 and 3. How do we get it? You'll be using for loop in order to generate values all these, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and finally 6. 1 not needed, 6 not needed, as we can eliminate. We will be adding it directly when we are doing the operations. So in these numbers, you need to check the condition and add. So what are the factors? 2 and 3, right? These will never become your factors, 4 and 5. If you observe 3 and 6, half is 3, right? And if you take factors of 8, 1, 2, 4, followed by 8. And the same logic and principle, if you observe, 1, eliminate, 8, eliminate, we'll be adding. Elimination doesn't mean directly we delete it. In the loop, in order to reduce the number of iterations, and we are just reducing it. So, what are the values? 2 and 4. What is the maximum factor apart from all these things? Which is 4, right? 4 will be your most factor, power factors. So, how do we get it? Let's say 8 half times is 4. You take any number, your factors after eliminating the 1 and itself numbers, your maximum factor will be half of the given number. It cannot exceed beyond that. 5, 6, these cannot form the factors beyond this. So, what is the logic which you can apply? In order to get factors of a number, you can just, in order to reduce the iterations, first eliminate the first iteration. You can directly add 1 into your loop. And if you also take last one, 8, these two can be added manually directly. And if you observe this part, other variable 4, or in the above case it is 3, right? These are just half of the given value. So your factors, apart from 1 and 8 after excluding, maximum what you can get is half of the given number. So you just need to run your loop till half. Let's say if the number absolute difference, if you got in the previous case it was 34, right? So you can just run it till 17. So in case of loop, if you find till 17, it is enough. So 1 is already included. So in this way, you can just make your work simple and also reduce the number of repetitions done by the loop. So how do we do it? For I in range, first SM will be directly containing my first factor 1. So I'll be running my loop from 2. Okay. So I've told you that we just need half of the iterations. In the previous example, we've took 80 absolute difference as my variable. So absolute difference floor division by 2, as stop value is exclusive, I need to mention plus 1 in order to include 80. So in this way I've reduced my time complexity. Initially my loop was running for 34 times, now it just got down to 17 minus 1, 16, as 1 also been eliminated over there, so it will be running for 16. If you include 1, it will be 17. So these many times. So next you can also make it down to square root times. So let's go and modify the code. What will we do? 2 already updated. You can just directly make it half. And while printing, add the variable which you missed. We've included 1 here, so we need to include the itself value, which is 34. You can write 34, which can be static. So in order to make changes in the every time, so directly add 80. So let's say 6 and 8, 54, same result, and 11, 110, same result, no changes. The only change is that we've reduced our repetitions, which is really important. This is called code optimization. You have to reduce your iterations. So you can also make this square root times as well. How do we do square root? 0.5. So why do I multiply with square root? Square root means half, which is nothing but square root of 80. So this will result in fractional value. So I'll be converting it into integer in order to eliminate the decimal part and to include the last one plus 1. So you can just 80 half 2 plus 1. Let's check that code. For now, we'll limit to direct iterations for 1 till 34, or you can call it absolute difference. Excluding these two, I can run my loop from 2 till half plus 1. So this is how it works. Let's move on to the next question. This is your second one. So let's begin. Rahul made a linked list made of n nodes where every node has two variables. So your node contains two variables, the velocity and mass of a particle. So your node contains two variables which are velocity and mass of a particle. So since all the particles have velocity in same direction, find the total momentum of the entity made by the particle from the linked list. So here are the constraints, which is positive. Your given value should be positive n, and input format: first line containing n number of nodes, then n lines containing mass and velocity separated. So which means first we'll be taking how many mass and velocity operations we need to perform, or means simply number of nodes. So once you've got number of nodes, you need to take those many times your input values for mass and velocity. Once these two values are being calculated, you need to make multiplication of these momentum into velocity. Finally, we'll be adding all these values and final result will be printed. So momentum, mass into velocity. So this will be your mass and this will be your velocity. Once you multiply these two and get, so let us take an example. First condition. In the first line, I'll be taking n value, which is number of nodes. This will be my input, and this will be number of nodes. So after collecting number of nodes for each node, I need to do mass into velocity in order to calculate momentum, which is P. P equals to mv. This is your formula. So I'll be using a loop for n number of times to collect number of mass and velocity items. Mass and velocity, I'll be taking values using same input function. Number of times, how many? The input number of nodes passed by the user. So after taking all this, I'll be adding, let's say in the first case, user pass, take an example of n, user will pass 3, then I'll be passing 1 and 2, the next line I'll pass 2 and 3, and next last me 4 and 5. So this is my mass and this is my velocity being. So what will be my multiplication values? M into V, which is equals to my momentum P, 2, 6, 20. So add up these values, 20, 26 and 28. So this is what I need to print at the final stage. So I hope this problem statement is clear for you. So let us begin with the code. First we'll be taking input, which is number of nodes. And I have to make sure that n number of nodes momentum to be calculated. So in order to calculate the momentum, mass and velocity values to be taken from the user. So I'll be running the loop for n number of times for I in range. How many times? I need to run time n. How does it assume? Backdraft. So it will run for, let's say if I pass 4, 0, 1, 2, 3. It starts from 0, ends at 3, but the number of time loop repeats 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times your loop will be repeating in order to collect two values. What are they? Mass and velocity. And I'll be using map function in order to collect and see in my map. The data type is integer. And next input from the user dot split in order to separate. So each and every time I collect these values, I have to multiply those, right? In the example, if you observe, once I've collected the mass and velocity values, I've multiplied these values and added up multiplication and adding up the values. So what is my next task to do? For each and everything, I'll be taking a variable result, which is equals to initially 0. Each and every time I'll be adding multiplication of these momentum. Adding of momentum, how do we calculate momentum? Mass into velocity. So I'll be multiplying these two values for each and every repetition and add it to the result variable so that every momentum will be calculated automatically. So finally my result variable contains all the momentum values, which is nothing but multiplication of mass and velocity of each one. So finally let's print mass and velocity, which will result. So if you pass, let's say 4, and I'll do 1, 2, 2, 3. Sorry, you need to separate by space. 4 values, 1, 2. Next, let's say 2 and 3. And next, I'll be passing 3, 4. And finally, let's pass 4 and 5. What is the resultant output? 40. So 4 and 5, this will be 20. 4 3s are 12, 20, 32, and 6, 38, and 2 ones are 2, which will be 40. So finally your result is 40. You can use it for other variables as well. Let's take what was the sample input over there. 1, 3, 2, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not mandatory, we need to pass the same variables. We'll cross check with 13, 24. Let's run this. Same for 13, 24, 2 and 4, and 2 and 3. What was the last two values passed? 4 and 5. So 4, 5, 37. Sample output 37. So this is how we need to solve this question. So if you have any additional doubts, you can just comment down and we'll try to answer the questions. Thank you. And we'll meet in the next session. Have a great day.